hi, I'm Liz Miller here with Pastor Ryan. You're back.
Hey.
It's so good to see you.
It's fun to be back.
I love when you teach, and I'm so excited to hear you taught this weekend, and then you'll be here next weekend as well. So this weekend we started a 2-week series called Habits and Heartbeats, and we talked about the Bible. And so you started, I just thought it was so good, and I was thankful for just the way you taught about the importance of the Bible and just the importance of getting into it and diving in, and that it's alive.
Yes.
The God of the universe left us his words, and how could we not be excited,
It's kind of
about that?
amazing. Yeah.
It really is. But you started off by saying you kind of started interacting with the Bible right around early 20s and had never had any experience. So there wasn't a lot of baggage there with like having to read the Bible. And I just wondered if you could kind of talk a little bit to the people that have had some baggage, or as a younger person, were made to read the Bible and you must listen. Here's the 10 Commandments, you have to do them, and just kind of feel like it's boring.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think in part that's like why I was excited to have this conversation this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think all the pressure, like the religious pressure that comes around the disciplines, can make them feel like they're not life-giving.
Yeah.
Like they're not enjoyable.
Right.
Like it's not fun. And I think working with the Bible takes some work, period. But it's like good work. I think it's like really can be enjoyable. It's like an acquired taste, which we're going to talk about a little bit next week. But I was excited about having that conversation where it's, if you can get above it and get a fresh look at it, I think it can be a big deal. I'm not even sure if I know exactly how to help somebody who's had that experience kind of get out of it. I know for me, when I started following Christ and I started attending like a college group, that as I started to come alive, like with the Bible, the people that grew up in the church kind of looked at me like an alien, like what is going on? Like
He's excited to open the Bible.
Yes, it was that kind of stuff.
He's excited to read Leviticus.
Right. And I think probably one of the easiest ways to help that is to watch somebody who has come to know Christ, and maybe to help them start reading the Bible and watch how excited they are. Even to this day, like when I'm discipling somebody, it reminds me, like, wow, right. It is a big deal. Like it fires me up all over again how amazing the words of God are in our lives as you start to discover it. I see it with my kids now. Like we'll do whiteboard studies, of course, right, in my house. And
Not a surprise.
Not a surprise. My daughter, she went, like I was teaching her about baptism before we got baptized, and she goes, Dad, like my whole view of it just changed, and like watching her heart light up for that stuff just fires me up. I think.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's such a gift to give to your kids, for them to learn, like you get to learn the Bible, not that you have to learn the Bible.
Right.
That's invaluable. One other question I had was to the person that might feel like the Bible's just another book. It's an ancient historical book, but it's not truth. Yep. That's a big question.
Oh, it's a huge question.
But just looking at the Bible and choosing not to believe it, what could you say to that?
Yeah. Let me answer that. I just thought of one more thing I wanted to say about the last thing too. So I'll come back to it. I was just thinking about this a little bit more as you asked me that with the baggage. I think one helpful piece, this is one piece I might give somebody who's got baggage with it, is to experiment. Like try different stuff with the Bible. Like if you were told read through the Bible every year, don't do that. Do something different. Like try to meditate on a verse, or try some different methods, to like freshen it up. Anyway.
That's great advice, actually, just because that was a little bit of my story, was that I got tired of reading the Bible, and every time I'd sit down, it was like, I guess I have to read 20 minutes, and here's my plan, and I'll get it done. And I love Jesus. I wanted to. It just didn't feel like it was alive.
Yep.
And when I just kind of decided to go outside of the box a little bit and say, like, okay, God, well, here, I want to know, like, I want to interact with you and treat this with reverence and holiness that it deserves. That was life-giving, was just to try something a little bit different for me.
Super duper good.
Yeah.
But back to your other question, right? About like the reliability of the Bible. And the Bible's reliability is really interesting, I think, because I mean, it's the most sold book ever, right? Like it's been around for a long time. And so it's a couple things that we should know about if I'm checking it out. One of the big pieces I think that was really helpful for me as I was learning about the reliability of the Bible is that it's the most historically reliable document that there is, right? And so there's all these like proofs and things that they test, like all these old documents that they find, right? Like the Iliad and stuff that we would maybe read in school. And they'll test like how many ancient manuscripts are there of this thing, right? This ancient document. Like the Iliad has 8. And the more that you have is the better. So like the New Testament has over 5,000 like copies of those manuscripts, right? So like fragments, little pieces, and that's just normal. And so like if you ask any scholar if the Bible is if they're like a manuscript scholar, if the Bible's a historically reliable document, they're like, oh, absolutely. Like it kills all of our tests. It's amazing, like knocks it all out. So there you have all these different pieces of kind of evidences that prove it. And I would encourage you, like if you're looking to figure it out, like check out The Case for Christ. It's a phenomenal book. Like if you're a reader, there's some really great resources. There's also a website. I think it's a Sean McDowell website. You can Google that, and there's a bunch of good talks, I think, about that as well. But I would look at, there's like major pieces. The Bible's being an ancient, reliable text. It's archaeological reliability. But ultimately, if you go through all these different proofs and tests that the Bible would go through, really the biggest thing you have to look at ultimately is Jesus and Jesus' death, burial, resurrection. Like, did Jesus live? Really, nobody argues with that.
Right.
Like, scholars are like, yeah, he lived, right? And it's kind of hard to deal with because he alters history. But then you have to figure out do you really believe that he died and that he rose from the dead? And the resurrection becomes the ultimate proof of the reliability of the Bible. Like that's if you had to point at the center point, it's even beyond the Bible. It's actually down to the resurrection. And the resurrection gives legitimacy really to all of the New Testament. And the New Testament really gives legitimacy to the Old Testament, right? It's kind of how it works. And so I think if you want to go check out all the evidences, like go for it. The thing that I found personally when I was wrestling, not so much with the Bible, but with faith, is that it really wasn't an intellectual problem.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, when I was intellectually honest about it, it was more of a volitional problem, right? A surrender of my will to kind of this picture of reality that God defines versus the one that I wanted to be true. You know,
so good.
And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of the real issue. So we can wrestle with all kinds of things about, can I trust this or not? But ultimately, it's about, I'm going to believe what I want to believe. Right. And we should use our minds and figure out what's the most reliable thing. I tell you, you're probably going to find it's the Bible.
Right.
But then it's ultimately a choice of the will. Do I want to believe what I think is true?
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good answer. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I thought it would be good just to wrap this up maybe and remind people of Pastor Ryan gave us homework, which is not typical. But we have homework this week, and I'm actually really excited to do it. I plan on doing it. Do you want to go over that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about reading Psalm 119.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually pretty simple homework. So Psalm 119, read it 3 times. But one of those times, I would love for each of us to read it out loud. I've done this multiple times myself in front of other people. I'm not asking you to do it in front of other people, but it is powerful when you read the words of Psalm 119 out loud, especially as you're trying to cultivate a hunger for the Bible. It's amazing. Because
you're speaking truth out loud, I think. That's what it is. And so getting to do that for somebody, for your kids, for your spouse, for a friend, I think would be such a gift, you know? Well, it's been the Weekend Extra. Thank you so much for this conversation, and we hope to see you next week.